Hello, friends. Welcome to the very first episode of Turf Without Borders. I am joined today by Jon Wood, the course manager at the Old, New, and Jubilee Courses for the St. Andrews Links Trust. Welcome to the show, Jon.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
I thought with this show, Turf Without Borders, it would be interesting to have a discussion with you from the home of golf, and we'll kick off this show about greenkeeping around the world, about turf management around the world, with the place where golf, the home of golf. I don't know what. I think one of the questions I was going to ask, and I don't know the answer. When was the course opened?
Good question. Some would say sometime in the 1500s, certainly for the old course, but not as you sort of see it now. I suppose as the old lays now is down to old Tom and what he did back in the day. So yeah, as it is now, it's probably 150 years old. There's been some changes. It was originally 22 holes. It was played the opposite way round at times. But yeah, in the current sort of format, yeah, it's probably 150 years. I'm sure someone will tell me differently.
It's been there a while. So you're directly in charge of 54 holes. To make it easy to get through these questions that I want to ask, which this is kind of like a virtual course visit, because I realize when I visit golf courses, I often ask people the same set of questions. And I thought it certainly would be interesting for me to have a podcast about that kind of thing, to learn how people in different parts of the world are managing grass and some of the challenges that they face. And so I've got this set of questions. To keep it simple, maybe we'll just stick to the old course mainly, so that we don't have to consider 54 holes, and we'll just
it might be easy to do 54, to be honest, with some of the questions.
Okay, so maybe I've picked a too complicated one to start with. Let's do this question. How many holes do you manage? Why don't we? Okay, you can stick with the 54 holes, and we'll just clarify anything that needs to be clarified.
No problem. It is 50. It is 54 holes. The old, the new, and the Jubilee, which all sort of running alongside each other. And then we've got a few areas, sort of practice areas, and some sort of chipping greens, etc. But golf holes, 54.
And that's what you're in charge of. But actually, at the St. Andrews Links Trust, there's also the Eden, the Balgovie.
So you've got the Eden, Balgove, and Strathtyrum, plus all the sort of practice facilities. So they're managed by a separate team. And then you've got the standalone Castle course, which sits just outside town. And they're just 18 holes, but sort of more a sort of visitor sort of golf club, standalone, one-off. It's quite a nice complex up there.
It's beautiful. And very challenging. I had the chance to play that one. I played the new and the old and the Castle, and I found the Castle the most challenging to post a score.
Certainly in the wind.
So how many rounds are played? That is a question that I ask at every golf course I visit.
So the old, we're around about 50,000 a year, and that's on a 6-day week, because apart from 4 Sundays, the old is closed, which is great. And then the new and Jubilee, they would be somewhere in and around 40,000 rounds to 45. So,
40 to 45 each.
Yeah, somewhere in that sort of number.
and then when you've got the start, what is the start time? Not for the first time the golfer can tee off.
So height of summer is 6:30, and we generally we have an hour in front of golf. In the winter, it can be as late as about 8:40, 8:50, just with the way daylight shifts. You can be lucky in the height of winter on a cloudy day. You can be lucky to have 6 hours of daylight, whereas in the summer, at the height of summer, you can nearly be out there all night playing. There'll be golf coming in on the old at 11 o'clock at night. Just as it's really just starting to get dark, which is amazing. To be honest, you get people stood at the back of the 18th green as you hit your shots in, and they'll clap. They've maybe had a few beers, so they're in a bit of a jovial mood, and it can be a really great atmosphere down there on 18 towards the end of an evening in the middle of the summer.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. But that leaves, if you've got people down there cheering at 11 p.m., and you may have people early in the morning in a queue waiting to see if they're going to get a tee time, help me understand when you have time to do any maintenance.
Well, the old we are fortunate to have the Sundays, so we generally try and do a lot of, you could say, the disruptive maintenance, so top dressing, maybe a bit of sort of refinement work. We try and leave a lot of that for Sundays. Aeration, if we want to try and do a bit of aeration, we try and leave all that on a Sunday. And generally through the week, it's more about just trying to present the golf course for the golfer. We've got a pretty big team and a good fleet of machinery, which allows us to stay ahead. But it can be challenging. You can be out in the morning and you get to sort of 5 and 13, which is one of the biggest greens on the old, and you sort of look back into town and you can see the golf coming. And because of the size of the greens, 2.7 hectares on the old, they're not long catching you up. And you've got to set the old up in the time it takes you basically to set 9 holes up. So it's very often you'll be finishing off on the 9th green, and golf will be on the tee hitting into the green. That happens quite a lot. And then the other courses, they can be just as challenging. The new would be probably the locals' favourite course. And those guys can race around there in the morning. You might get some tradesmen who are perhaps trying to get in a round before they go off to work for the day. We get raced around all the courses, but generally we have an hour in front of golf to set the courses up. For the new and Jube, we've just in the last year, which has been great benefit, once a month we get a 2-hour window. So first tee off, instead of being at 6:30, would be 8:30. So we generally try and do our top dressing applications on that day, but that doesn't always work because the weather doesn't always play ball.
I was thinking that you might say that. Is the Sunday closure only for the old course, or is the Sunday closure for all the courses?
No, it's for just for the old course. It's a historical. It's the Sabbath as such. So it's always been that way. It's quite a nice tradition.
And so you're out there doing what you might consider disruptive maintenance if it needs to be done, and people are also out there walking their dogs, and tourists are out there taking pictures, and people have big smiles on their faces and cameras out, and they're climbing into Hell Bunker and stuff like that, aren't they?
Yeah, it can be quite frustrating because yeah, although Sunday the course is closed, in your head you envisage, oh well, there'll be nobody about. But no, I've seen rugby matches take place on 1 and 18 on a Sunday afternoon, or a lady walking across the first green, pushing a pram with stilettos on. You see all sorts, and not that you turn a blind eye, but sometimes you've just got to say this is the beauty of this place, and it's what it's all about. But it can be quite frustrating. Say you're trying to top dress the greens, and suddenly a dog runs in front of you from a dog walker, but you've just got to get on with it, I suppose.
Yeah, the rugby would be interesting. I suppose that's not really endorsed or
No,
encouraged, is it?
not at all. No. You just I remember that day very vividly. 20 guys just sort of running across onto the home end, and suddenly someone throws a ball up, and yeah, they're just all after each other, and it's yeah. What are you going to say to 20 guys playing rugby? You can't do this.
So how many staff do you have to? Before I ask about the staff, can you clarify a little bit? You mentioned that you have to set up basically 9 holes in the time of 18, and I think you're referring to the double greens, right? So you don't want to be working on one of the double greens when somebody's out on 4. You don't want to be working on is it 13?
14.
14.
Yeah. So basically, we try and not with everything, but certainly on the greens, we try and take everything on the way out. So it's all cut, so there's nothing on or around the greens that may disturb the outward golfers. We might leave some fairways coming back in on the back 9, but they're generally a bit further away from the golfer. So yeah, there's ultimately there's 11 greens on the old course, but you've got double greens within those 11 to make up the 18.
So you start on 18, 1, 17, 2 and 16.
Yep.
3.
Yeah, just 3, 15, 4, 14, and just generally work out. We sometimes might leave 17 and 18, but 18 again is right beside the first tee, so it's not a great thing having to go back up there. Although we do now have electric greens mowers, so that does help from a noise, disturbance point of view. You've only got the whining of the motors of the reels going around instead of a diesel engine blaring off in the background. So that probably, technology going forward, electric sort of equipment will potentially help us and maybe change how we might look at doing things slightly because of the noise impact and less disturbance to the golfer.
Are you almost exclusively using electric greens mowers now?
So we've got 6 3370s across the 3 courses. So generally the greens, they go on the greens, and then we've got the sort of hybrid mowers going on the tees and surrounds and sort of areas off the greens. So yeah, we've got a mixture, but generally the electrics are on the greens. Yeah.
And you've got the agreement with Toro, don't you? So it's pretty much exclusively Toro equipment.
Yep. All cutting equipment, sort of utility, some aeration equipment. Yeah, all Toro. Yeah.
And how many staff do you have to take care of these properties?
So for the Old New and Jubilee, we run at 32 full-time staff. That includes myself, and then we have a further. we're around about 45 height of summer. Some of those seasonals maybe 20 hours, so just in the morning, and not in all day. But yeah, sort of head count first thing in the morning, probably not far off 45 for the three courses.
And on those three courses, are people assigned to a specific course, or would they tend to cross over to different courses?
So how we have it at the moment, we've got sort of a supervisor on each course, responsible, that sort of stays on the course. We've got other people that sort of will stay on one course maybe more than others, just from a knowledge sort of base from the past. But overall, quite like the idea of everybody working on all the courses. That gives you a lot of flexibility. If someone doesn't turn up, or weekends, and then running into tournaments, you want everybody to work on the old, so they get that experience of when a tournament does come around. Well, it's just second nature, that they know where they're going and what they're doing.
And they know where the bunkers are, right?
So they know where. They know where the bunkers are. It does bring its problems, though, having everybody working on all the courses. It's sometimes, if someone's perhaps not performing the best, it's slightly harder to pick up who that person might be. So yeah, it has its challenges, but I think the ability for the team to be able to work on three courses, it freshens it up every day. It's great having. I really love the fact you can be down sort of 1-18 and the hustle and bustle on the old. You've got people excited. Just a real sort of emotional place. Or you could wander right out to the 9th tee of the Jubilee, the 8th green, and you're on the Eden Estuary, and you're as far away as possible as you can be from the 18th, and it's peaceful, and you can hear the birds singing. I think that's great, that flex that opportunity to have both of those sort of experiences on the one site.
What type of grasses are grown on the putting greens and on the other surfaces?
So generally, there's a good mix of all grasses, but we try to favour the finer grasses in everything we do. So we're looking at fine fescues and bents as the predominant. But with 2.7 hectares of greens on the old, there's a mix of all sorts in them. Hundreds of years of just slowly being what they are. But our main aim across the whole site is for fescues and bents. We do use a bit of rye on some of the real high traffic areas around the courses. Some of the new ryes are, well, you wouldn't know they were ryes. They can be as fine as fescues. So yeah, we're not afraid to use other grasses, but basically our management aims is for fescues and bents.
And when you say bent, do you mean brown top, or what Americans might call colonial bent grass, or common bent grass?
No, brown top. Yeah, brown top bent.
And you have a little bit of Poa annua in there in the greens, maybe a little bit of Holcus lanatus or Yorkshire fog. There's various. There's a little bit of ryegrass in there. There's one other, cocksfoot or something. Is there?
You've got you've got me thinking now. It's not cocksfoot. It is. Oh, that's gone from. Yeah,
there's not much of it, right?
No. There isn't. We have. It will come to me. We have a grass that puts out a seed in June, which is a pain in the backside, to say the least. It's a real bushy sort of seed head. It looks when it's not seeding, it looks like a courses sort of bent grass, and doesn't cause a problem for the rest of the year.
Hmm.
It's just for this period. But yeah, the name has gone from me. But yeah, there's a bit of Yorkshire fog. There's a bit of ryegrass in them. Yeah, not masses, but yeah, little bits. It will have blown in from around the site and things like that. So yeah, we try to manage that in a cultural way. Yorkshire fog, try and disturb. That's a soft grass. It doesn't like lots of disturbance. So we'll go in there and try and do a bit of manual raking just to ruffle it up a little bit. Just try and weaken it. Yeah, but
Bruce the leaves, basically.
Yeah, yeah,
yeah. And then do you interseed? You add some seed of fescue every year?
Yeah, we try and just on a rolling plan across all the greens is just constantly trying to seed in where we can. The new courses had a great year with the ladies being on. The new basically gets shut down. It only has a couple of holes open for the tournament, and then we have what's called a composite course, which is a couple of holes on the new and on the Jube. So that's had 2 closures this year, and we've took full advantage of doing 2 really good seeds, and we've had 2 really good results from those seedings, just with fescue. So yeah, the old is. Sorry, the old is a little bit, again, more difficult to get seed out. You've always got things going on, so you're always thinking about what's coming up next from a disturbance sort of point of view. But we do, yeah, we're constantly just putting it in where we can. Yeah.
Would you say that the 3 courses, they're all over 100 years old, right? The old course, you said maybe 150 years. The new course is similar. The Jubilee is 125 or something.
Yeah.
So we're dealing with courses that were all built in their current form. They all opened in the 19th century, and so the greens are of that age. Would you say that the grass composition across the courses is pretty similar with the way that you're managing now?
Yes, yeah, I would. The Jubilee's changed a bit over the last 30 to 40 years, so that's got a little bit more of a mix of what's under the soil. Some younger greens. The Jubilee's basically, a lot of it's built on what was the old town dump. So some of the soils are different on that area. We've got a couple of dew ponds, where there's like a clay put in to try and hold a bit of moisture. We think the third, which is a green that does suffer quite a bit at times, and we actually think that's the cause of it. There's a clay layer probably 2 foot down, so that's something we're gonna at some point look at maybe exploring and see if we can remove that and do something about it. But there's certainly the old and the new. They've not had a lot of tinkering done, so they are very similar to each other.
Is it all men on the staff, or do you have some women working on the maintenance team also?
No, we've got 3 women on the team currently. During the ladies, we had, I think it was 6 or 7. So just over 10% of the crew, you could have said, for the ladies, with volunteers. The links itself, we have 4 women greenkeepers across all the teams. So yeah.
Excellent. What nitrogen rate do you put on the putting greens and on the fairways?
So roughly in and around the 50 to 60 mark on the greens. Can vary on certain greens across the. I think how much you put on is, sometimes you've just got to look at what's happening that year. We had a real wet winter last year, and grass, just with traffic on the greens, we lost it. We had a bit of thinning, so we probably put a little bit more on than I would be normally used to doing at my previous places, just to try and get a bit more recovery early season. But roughly in and around the 50 to 60 is where we're at. But that's not to say that would be the same every year. That's where we are with this year. And then on the fairways, I would say we're in and around the 15 to 20. We've increased it slightly from previous years, just to try and get divot recovery a little bit more. We are heavily played. A wet winter means softer grass, bigger divots. So this year we have put a little bit more, all in liquids, and generally when we've been maybe applying a wetting agent. And again, it's just to try and get a bit of divot recovery more than anything else.
Yeah, I can imagine the divot issue there is as cold as it is in the winter, and as long as the cold season is, and then golfers are playing year round, so they will take some divots. I'm going to translate those rates real quick for people who are not familiar. I believe those are in kilograms per hectare. So 50 to 60 on greens is from 1 pound to 1.2 pounds per 1,000 square feet per year. The 15 to 20 kilograms per hectare on fairways is about 0.33 up to 0.4 pounds per 1,000 square feet per year. So those, would you say those are typical links course type of rates?
Yeah, I think 50 would be seen as a general sort of number. I've been as low as 30 on other links courses in my time, but different conditions that year. I don't think you should set out with a number in your head at the beginning of the season. I think you need to look at what's happening, day by day, week by week, and if you feel it needs a little bit, then you need to give it a little bit. I do growth degree days, and I know you're looking at the growth potential. I've heard all about that, and I find that quite interesting, and I think it's a good way of doing it and looking at it. But also sometimes you've just got to look at your grass and go, it needs a little bit.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, do you on those 2.7 hectares of greens, do you measure clipping volume?
So no, I would love to, but it's just the whole of getting chased around in the morning. It's very difficult. It sounds really daft, but 2 or 3 minutes could make all the difference to getting around in front of golf. I have done it in the past. I did it when I was at the Castle course, and again, I do like it. I need to figure a way of, dare I say, trying to simplify it a little bit, that I can get information that's not. I need to figure out how I get around this. I do ask the guys to let me know every day across the 3 courses how many boxes they get off. That's a start, in my opinion, towards getting some tangible data. We've sort of said if it's this full in a box, that's classed as a full box. It's probably 3/4 of a box. So just to try and get some sort of information. But yeah, I like all those sort of things of collecting data and being able to use it. I think it's really important and informs decisions. Moisture's really important. Say growth degree. I remember when I started out in my career, the course manager they used to say to me, when the buds of this tree opened is when the turf is ready for fertilizer. And ultimately, it's the same principle as growth degree days. He just did it looking at a tree. I think that's brilliant myself.
Yeah, you're right. You can look at the plants and they're responding to growing degree days. So that will be at a certain growing degree day threshold. And as you say, you look at the grass depending on the weather and things that we don't even understand about soil biology and just the way the grass is performing in the certain weather this year and the traffic that it sustained this year, and particular perhaps some drought stress at a certain time of year. It may thin or it may be thick, and you can look at that and decide, okay, we don't need to put the fertilizer this week, or maybe we should put fertilizer a bit sooner than we planned. So I think it's so nice to be able to have that clipping volume data where you have the exact amount of growth, and you add that together with your visual observations, and it can be really useful. But I understand that sometimes it can be a challenge to figure out a way to be able to do that. Join me in Niagara Falls, Ontario from February 25 to 27 for the Canadian Golf Course Management Conference. For the first time, I'll be teaming up with Chris Trittabaugh from Hazeltine National to discuss how to deliver top-tier playing conditions for all levels of golf. We'll dive into the OM246 method for managing organic material. Plus, I'll be giving a separate talk on mastering turf nutrition. It's an incredible event in an amazing setting. Get all the details and register at golfsupers.com.
Yeah, no, and as I say, it's not for the want of not wanting to do that. It's just, yeah, it's quite a challenging place when you're getting chased around by golf in the morning.
I can imagine, yeah, and people are there for the round of a lifetime, perhaps. So you don't want to be there with the holes not changed or the greens not mown, or you want to give them the best experience possible. What type of mowing heights do you go with through the year?
So generally, no lower than 4 millimeters. We were at 4 millimeters just for a short period of time this year, and then that can go all the way up to about 6 millimeters in the winter, with a lot more rolling in the winter. So we would probably, be cutting once or twice a week at the most in the winter, but doing a bit more rolling or de-dewing. But yeah, 4 to 6 mil is probably the range, and then going from cutting roughly every day to 2 or 3 times a day, 2 or 3 times a week.
I'll translate those numbers. That's something like 0.15 inches up to 0.25 inches, something like that. But for a fine fescue dominated surface, you can still get quite good ball roll at a higher cutting height. So you're doing that to favor the type of grasses that you want and still produce the nice surface. What do you?
Yeah, I was going to say, and sort of the use of growth regulators, PGRs. I think that also allows us now to raise that height of cut a little bit more, which again, yeah, quite rightly, it helps us favor the grasses we're trying to grow.
What do you do with coring or solid tine aeration or slicing? What's the cultivation plan on the greens?
So generally, we will give all the greens a 12 millimeter spike in this time of year. We've just finished that across the 3 courses. We'll then look to do a 10 mil in sort of February, March time, and that's a deep tine, so 8 to 10 inches down. So a good tine in the green, relieve a lot of compaction from the previous season, and then through the season, it's probably a couple of times with 8 or 6 mil solid tines as we feel required. Sort of running into a tournament, it's probably a good idea just to do something probably 6 to 8 weeks out in case you get a rain event and you need to get just get the water off the surface. But yeah, not a great deal. We might do a little bit of coring on certain places. We built a new putting green on the new a few years ago. That's just a little bit tighter in the surface, so we've done a little bit of coring there. But generally, we don't do a lot of coring. A lot of it is sort of solid tining. No real removal. And then on terms of slitting, don't do a lot down here. Just feel that can be, if you are going to do any slitting, you probably do that up to Christmas to give it a chance to heal going into the following season. But a lot of it is just mainly solid tining with coring in Pacific areas where there maybe is required.
And then when you're doing the solid tining, it's for the purpose of decompaction, if I understand correctly. It's not or decompaction or more rapid water infiltration, and perhaps as a preventative, just to make sure that you're going to have that water infiltration. It's not really creating spaces for sand channels to go down, but you do put sand, don't you? Could you explain how much sand you use and how you apply that?
Yeah, so we, again, sort of general rule of thumb is we're looking for around about 100 tons of sand per hectare on the greens. That, again, doesn't always work out with how busy it is. And that's generally just put out on spinners, spreading the sand on a little and often sort of application, so every 3 to 4 weeks on the green. To say the new and Jube have these maintenance days, which we try and do that on those days. The old, we've got the luxury of the Sundays, so it's just about sort of timing that in and around when we've got other events sort of coming up. We sort of we look to try and get a fair bit down at the start of the year when it's generally drier, and you're sort of beyond the disease phase, and reduce it sort of this time of year.
How many total sand applications might that be to get that 100 tons out?
You're probably in around 12 or 13. If you're lucky.
Good. What's your irrigation water source? Do you get that from a well, or where do you get that?
We've got 4 boreholes that cater for all the courses, so not just the old New and Jubilee, but the Eden, Strathtyrum, and Balgove. So yeah, it's all borehole water.
Is there any salinity with you being that close to the ocean?
No, we do sort of monitor it, but nothing. No, it's the boreholes are quite away inland, so yeah, we don't really see any major effects with that. It's slightly alkaline, so we sometimes. Well, we're looking at ways of trying to treat that just to lower the pH slightly, just to help with, the fescues probably prefer slightly acidic sort of waters.
What is the number one complaint that you hear from golfers?
Oh, good question. I would say, well, you're always going to get the green speed. They're not quick enough or this, but we need to be quite careful with that. It's a windy site at times, so if you suddenly get over 10 and the wind gets up, yeah, you can make some holes implayable. I suppose one of the biggest ones from locals in the last few years has been divot recovery. and the amount of divots on the golf course. We have a crew that go out and divot every day. But certainly this last year with the wet start, every time we seemed to divot, the rain washed it all back out again, and we were back out filling the same divots over and over again. But probably green speed is, I think that's always the number one. They're not quick enough, or they're not smooth enough, or yeah. But we don't get a lot of that. So yeah, or I don't hear a lot of that.
Okay, well, thank you. I think it's always interesting to know what golfers complain about. I know in Thailand, when I ask this question, the complaint is often about the caddies.
Okay.
Right? Because people expect, especially tourists, it seems like they expect to come here and then have a great caddy and everything's perfect. But if the caddy doesn't read their putt correctly, or the caddy doesn't have their club for them fast enough or something, then, or basically if people don't play well, maybe they complain about their caddy.
Yeah. I know. I can see that. I can see that. We've there's a lot of people in town that have been here a long time, and they've played the links for a long time. And I suppose at this time of year we do a lot of course management, and we get a lot of people going, "Oh, why are you destroying the golf course?" And you sort of look at them as if to say, "Well, 10 years ago, this gorse bush wasn't this size. It was a lot smaller." But everybody has quite short memories of how everything looked back in the day. We've got pictures. I think that's a great thing, taking pictures of the site over years, and you can see how things change and progress. And gorse is one of those, you don't really notice it, and then all of a sudden it's like, wow, that's grown quite big. But yeah, we're the evil people that come and chop it all back down.
Well, thank you for that. That's hard work and important work. What would you say are the three main pests, which could be rodents or weeds or diseases or anything? If you would just pick three.
So rabbits is something we're always constantly dealing with. We're pretty on top of it, but it's one of those, I think if you stopped, you would soon realize that would become a major problem again. Fairy rings can be quite challenging on greens. Sort of the moisture management's really important. You want dry, firm, fast greens, but that can sometimes come at a cost. So I think fairy rings from a links point of view that's quite a challenging sort of topic to look after. And then I'd say golfers, actually, they're a pest. The job would be easy without golfers.
Okay, so well, that's good. So we got two vertebrates, rabbits, golfers, and fairy ring. That's good. We're coming to the end of the questions. This is one that I think, talking to people around the world, I like to know, what do you think? Is this job a trade or a profession?
Oh, it's definitely a profession. A lot of people think you just cut grass, but it's far, far more than that. No, it's an absolute profession, and I think our industry. I think our industry is fantastic. The opportunities it can give you, all the different avenues of looking after turf, whether that's soil management to disease control to understanding how your mowers work, hydraulics, irrigation systems. What industry do you have where you actually need to know so much as a course manager to make it work? I think No, it's absolutely a profession. Even in the last 20 years of really starting to get into sort of data collection and looking at the numbers and trying to figure out what it all means. Profession without a doubt.
Okay, good answer. That's a complicated one. I think sometimes the education is designed, certainly at the entry level, in some countries, the education is done as if it's a trade. But then you look at it, by the time you get into your position, if somebody who's in your position, look at the value of the property you're managing, look at the value of the business that's being operated there. Look at the value of the equipment in the irrigation system. That can't be a trade anymore. It's a profession. So,
and also sometimes you've got to be a politician. You've got so many stakeholders wanting a piece of the golf course, and you've got to try and make all that work as well. I think that's a key skill that we have to learn as you get higher up in this profession. It can get quite political at times.
Yes, I think everybody sometimes will get into those kind of situations and learn to deal with them. Well, I wanted to close with one more question. I think sometimes I hear people on another podcast, and I know, like, oh, you've been on tour with a band in different continents, but it never comes up in the conversation. And I thought sometimes there's something interesting, like somebody was a national lawn bowls champion, and it never comes up in the conversation. And I just wonder, is there anything about yourself that you would like to share that for people to know, whether it's a hobby or something like that I maybe I know some of the things, but I don't want to introduce them, but maybe you can say, or you don't have to say.
Well, I've got two sort of main hobbies, and some of this is more for my mental health, in clearing my mind. I'm a keen photographer, and I'm a hill walker, and in 2020 I completed all the Munros in Scotland. There's 282 peaks that sit over 3,000 feet. And that took me 10 years to complete of my life. And I'm currently now doing the next level down, which is the Corbett's, and I've got about, I think it's 63 to go.
That's amazing.
Yeah. I love the outdoors, and I think at times you need to be able to switch off and slow down, and that's the photography. That slows me down. Tripod, thinking about it. I think it's important to have something else outside work where you can switch off and just reflect on the week or the day that's been.
Well, thank you for sharing that. I really enjoy those hobbies of yours as you share those photos, and some of the photos of the waves coming in the harbors, or the northern lights recently. You've got some, and especially up in the hills. And you also take great pictures on golf courses, but some of the nature photos are just spectacular, and the light coming through the clouds or the snow on the distant peaks, and it really shows the beauty of Scotland. And I know that's coming from your eye and the way that you compose those photos, and then you've hiked to those places to get there, or you've gotten there at the right time when the light's right, and I'm impressed at the skill you have at that. So thank you for sharing those.
No, well, thank you. I enjoy it.
Well, Jon, thank you so much for subjecting yourself to this interview of me asking all of these questions, and I really appreciate it. You shared so much interesting information, and I learned a lot.
No, thank you. Thank you for having me.
It was my pleasure. And that wraps up the very first episode of this new show. We'll see how it goes as we talk to turfgrass managers around the world. And for now, I'll sign off. For ATC from Bangkok, Thailand, I'm Micah Woods. Bye-bye. Thanks for tuning in. Want to level up your turfgrass knowledge? The International Turfgrass Research Conference in 2025, happening July 12 to 16th in Karuizawa, is the perfect place. Attend seminars, hear keynote speakers, and present your work on a global stage. Get all the info at turfsociety.com.